Hello, our fabulous Limitless family. Feliz lunes to everyone who's tuning in right now or might just be listening to us on the go later. Before I introduce my colleague, I want to ask, what if you could just be a little bit more present for the important things in your life? Or if you could be un poquito más wiser when making decisions, or a little bit, tiny bit more unbothered when that certain someone that can really push your buttons is going for it. So today we are going to have Coach Mike, mindset performance coach, room tilter, and mindfulness practice extraordinaire.
Well, thank you so much, Tanya. Good to see you again.
Great to see you too.
That's a wonderful introduction. I don't know if I'd call myself an extraordinaire, but I like the way it sounds.
As someone who is striving to get to where you're at now, I would say yes. It sounds like you have kind of mastered the art of practice of incorporating mindfulness into your life and are seeing some of the results from it.
I have. And I kind of came to mindfulness in I like to say, a reverse way. Um, so, would you like me to share how I came into mindfulness, or did you want to?
No, I when you said a reverse way, I was like all hooked in. Like, tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I had a good friend introduce me to meditation. Years ago, when I was back in college, I was struggling in so many different areas of my life. And he introduced me to meditation. And because I was so desperate for a fix, a solution, I took to the meditation very, very quickly. And I had like these amazing, profound, sometimes transcendental experiences. Fast forward years later, um, adulting sets in, parenting, family, all that other stuff, right? And you throw meditation out the window and you think back, oh, I got to meditate. I want to meditate. And you try it and you can't do it because you can't sit still. Your mind just keeps going. All the reasons why people have trouble meditating
Hmm.
in the very beginning, early stages. So once I ended up at IMG Academy and did the summer work there, that's when I was really introduced to mindfulness. And at that point, I had a little less going on in life. So I took to mindfulness very, very quickly. And I quickly realized, like, wow, this is a great way to start a meditation practice is by doing mindfulness. Um, and I just started doing mindfulness just very routinely. I made it a point to do it, 10 minutes, 2 or 3 times out of the day, to the point where it just kind of became a part of my lifestyle. And through that, till this day, it still is. So I'd love to kind of talk and share a little bit about kind of maybe some of the tips and solutions and tricks and things that people can do with mindfulness. But I'd love to hear how it's kind of impacted your life as well.
Yeah, so I do like before we get into it, because again, like I feel you're more advanced in the practice of it. What are some of the things that you notice have been some of the advantages or the things that you've gotten better at through this consistent practice?
I'd say probably the first thing is patience. Um, and you know, at Limitless Minds, right? We talk a lot about being neutral and
Hmm.
finding that space to be neutral and not quickly making a snap decision or a jump decision based off of, an emotional or visceral type of feeling that we have. So for me, it's really taught me how to really kind of take that pause, take a step back, and a lot of times, like, we'll have these things go on in our lives where we know we need to just pause, not react quickly. So if it's something that, your boss or your manager or your spouse says to you, and there's this immediate initial emotional response that you have, um, and we know enough to pause and not respond, but then what we end up doing is going down the wrong rabbit hole of thoughts, right? So we mastered the one part of like pausing and not doing anything, but
Hmm.
we haven't mastered the point of choosing which thoughts are going to be the best thoughts, or what's going to be the next right step, like we always say, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it, right? Recognizing that this is just like any other practice. It comes in phases, it comes in steps. The more you practice it, the better you can get at the practice, and the better you get at the practice, the more it can become part of your lifestyle.
Hmm.
So for me, it's the patience piece. Not only the patience of just pausing, but really being patient to be mindful and aware of my thoughts, and then deciding and choosing which one is going to be the next right step, or which one is going to be the right next thought or emotion that I'm going to proceed with.
I love that. Lane says that he loves hearing how each of us discovered mindfulness. I do too. So, Lane, if you want to share with us, like how you've done it, um, for me, I it was actually more as a like mindset technique of like how can you be more present, more focused, more aware, and
Mhm,
so it was something that I started learning as a psychologist so that I could teach my athletes.
mhm,
But one of the main things about it is like you can't really teach it if you don't practice it.
right,
If you don't experience the challenges, if you don't experience like what it does to you when you're practicing and also in your life, you're almost like teaching eyewash.
right,
And so as someone with ADHD, which basically means I have a very active mind, it doesn't want to stay still. And the some people love practicing, for example, meditation in like a quiet setting and like have a space, and they're like, set a place that is calm and quiet. I'm like, if I do that, I will go insane, right? And so I had to do it and go insane so that I could have different ways of understanding what are some of the things that athletes might go through, so that if I'm teaching this to them, I can see what might be some of their challenges because I'm experiencing them, but also because I'm sharing this experience with other people like you.
mhm,
So for you, it almost sounds like when you're doing it, those 10 minutes a day, it kind of allows you to find like some grounding and inner peace and become aware of your thoughts.
right. Yes, absolutely. And everyone is going to be different, right?
Mhm.
I think one of the first ways that I started to practice mindfulness was through an app, and it was called Headspace.
Yeah.
Um, Very well known app. The gentleman who does the scripts for those for the 10-minute mindfulness sessions, he's got a great voice. He's got a great cadence. So I pretty much learned, like I did it so much I almost verbatim started to know exactly what the script was, to the point where when I was working with my athletes or working with my clients and they were interested in mindfulness, I would begin to start going down this path of trying to describe what it is, and then finally it's just like, what, let's just do it. Let's just do a quick 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and see how you feel. And right, when we talk about applied sports psychology, right, and there's no better way, right, than to just actually apply the skill, show someone how to apply the skill, and then allow them to use it for their own performance.
Yeah.
So that's the first way. The second way, I noticed that, and this is something I noticed just kind of on my own, was anytime that I did a session where I was coaching someone through it, at some point in the very beginning, there would be this shift in energy in the room. And that's when I noticed, okay, this is when you can really begin to take advantage of mindfulness, is when
Mhm.
you can begin to recognize these shifts in energy and take advantage of that moment. Um,
Wow.
so I'll give you another good example. I think
Let me pause very quickly and say, because something that you just said is gold. And Mari, producer, if you can put it in, and it's like take advantage of the moment.
yes, yep, take advantage of the moment. So I'm going to give you an analogy that I've recently started to use, and it was just something that I've recently came across. It's just something that recently happened to me. I'm driving on the highway. I live in Florida. I'm driving on the highway, and I had about an hour drive ahead of me, and it starts to downpour. And I mean, it's like a torrential downpour for about 20 miles, maybe 25, 30 miles. And it gets to the point where I'm saying to myself, probably like most people, you say to yourself, I should probably pull over and wait for this to kind of slow down. But
Mhm.
you don't. You put your hazards on, you grab the wheel tighter, right? And you just, your windshield wipers are going faster and faster. And you're like, oh, I'm just going to creep along here. I'm going to slow down my speed. I'm going to keep going. Meanwhile, as you're going, you go under an overpass. And in that brief moment when you go under the underpass, there's a shift in the energy, right? For a tenth of a second, it stops raining. The rain starts hitting your car, and you have this brief moment of, oh wow, there's no more rain. But then you keep going, and as you do this, 10, 15 miles, maybe every fifth mile, you come under another overpass, and the rain stops. And then you get to maybe the third or fourth one, and then finally you see the guy on the motorcycle, or the family in the minivan parked underneath the overpass, and they're just waiting it out. That's kind of what mindfulness is, right? It's like you're driving, your world is full of downpour, rain, rain, rain. And then the moment there's a pause, if you can recognize that pause and take advantage of it, then that's in essence kind of practicing mindfulness, right? Um, so and then what happens is, like, when you're driving down this road and it's downpouring, you start to kind of subconsciously anticipate those moments where you're going to go under the overpass
Mhm.
and it stops raining. Even though it's like a tiny brief second, you get a moment of relief from the rain, and you can see clearly, and it's like, oh, okay. So even in that tiny second, right? That's a moment where you can just say, wow, okay, that was a good moment. I want to look forward to the next good moment. I want to look forward to the next good moment. I want to look forward to the next good moment. And that's what mindfulness, I think, for me is that you start looking forward to those moments. You start finding those moments where there's a shift in the energy, and then you can start taking advantage of the moment. A great time to take advantage of that is you're in the car, you're on your way to a job interview, and before you hop out of the car, just turn the car off. You hear the engine stop, you hear the radio stop, you hear the AC go off, and there's this moment of like silence, and in that moment is when you can practice mindfulness. And in that moment is when you are practicing mindfulness, because you just simply recognize, here's a moment for me to pause.
Wow, that I don't think I could ever have found like a better description or way of understanding it, and I love it. Lane loves the example too, and so one of like we as I think as we were all hearing you say this, we're like, I want to have those moments in my life. I want to have more moments of like being under the roof and having clarity and just kind of being in that pause internal from the torrential thing that is
Mhm,
life, right?
mhm,
And so we said at the beginning we're going to talk about how to get there in simple ways. And so there's to me there's two ways of going about it. One is a formal practice, and we'll give some tips about how to get into it and stay
mhm,
consistent. And then there's the informal practice, right? How do you do it in the small moments? How do you do it in certain specific times throughout the day, where you're just like training your mind to be right here right now in whatever it is that you're doing and thinking about.
mhm,
And so to me there's two like preconditions so that you can do that. And one is acceptance. And so to me acceptance, and I want to make sure that we understand this word, because it doesn't mean like liking whatever is happening. It doesn't mean not action or doing nothing about it. Acceptance just means it is what it is right now,
right.
just right now. And to me, when I started accepting that uh, practicing was hard, that my mind will wander, that my butt hurts when I'm sitting down for too long. When I started kind of accepting that this is what it is for right now, it allowed me to get to the next step.
Hmm.
And so to me, if I could define mindfulness, it's just like being present with whatever is happening inside and outside,
Hmm.
and understanding it without the need of you wishing it was a different way or
Right.
that you were a different way.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Great definition. And I mean, I think if we ask a lot of people, right, to give a definition, everybody might have a different version, but it all kind of points to the idea of paying attention on purpose without judgment and without judgment, but with acceptance, as you said, right? And it's just exactly what you said. You're just accepting the moment. You're not saying this is a good thing, this is a bad thing, this is a horrible thing. I have to, got to, need to. It's just I'm accepting this moment right now. I'm
Mhm.
accepting this torrential downpour. And I'm accepting the fact that when I go under the underpass, oh, I get a moment of relief and then I got to get right back into it again, right? And there's no judgment. You just, as you said, you just accept it. So absolutely.
And so this is why, I mean, I love having these conversations, but one of the things I've actually started challenging is that notion of non-judgment and going back to acceptance. And to me, it's accepting that I will have judgment. Like there is not, there is never, there's very few times where I'm sitting down and doing a practice, or even just like the informal ones where my mind isn't making some sort of a comment
Hmm.
of how am I doing it and whether it's right, whether it's wrong, whether like there is always a judgment. And to me, part of accepting is like, or mindful is knowing that that judgment is there, not necessarily buying into it, but
Right.
accepting the fact that at least I have a very judgy mind.
We all do. We all do. Every one of us does. Every one of us does. But that's half the battle, right? As long as you know that, then you're on the road to, okay, I can embrace it, I can accept it, and I'm closer to choosing the thought that I want to go with as opposed to allowing it to just take me someplace where I don't need to be.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we had some good comments here too. Justin says that his mindfulness practice started through crazy amounts of reading, then coaching with Colin Henderson, and he's addicted to a better life. Absolutely. Well, that's great to know, right? Colin is one of our room tilters and does a great job with coaching. So shout out to Colin and shout out to you, Justin. Glad that you are addicted and committed to a better life via the coaching from Colin. Um, Lane says, awesome example. Thank you, Lane. And he also says, well, Lane actually gave a pretty good example too. He's saying his started with combat mindset training, then involved in a learning, and then eventually getting certified to coach emotional intelligence. And I continue to fine tune it with all of the Limitless Minds crew. Awesome. So yeah, that's great, right? I mean, that's the other thing is like you find something, you begin the process, and then you take it to the next level, right? By actually getting certified or getting, um, a form of formalized kind of education so that you can deliver it and bring it to other people in your and within your own life. So thanks for sharing that, Lane.
Yeah, and the common theme I hear from the three of you is a work in progress. It's a consistency, something that you keep doing, you keep training, you keep coaching. And I love what Justin said about like being addicted to a better life, because it also ends up being a result of this
Hmm.
practice. And so one of the biggest challenges I have faced, and a lot of the players I work with face, is either getting started, then getting consistent,
Hmm.
and then getting consistent when you really don't want to do it.
Right.
Because often when you are in the downpour rain, the last thing you want to do is stop, right? You said it, like you just want to keep going.
Hmm.
And that's probably the moment where you need to stop the most. But because there's all this rain and the noise, and you probably just want to get out of it, then you're like, I'm not doing it.
Hmm.
And so one of of the things that really have helped me and some of my players is start small. Like figure out, to me, three things. What kinds of exercises and practices do you enjoy and have fun with?
Hmm.
Which ones do you find challenging? And which ones bring you like this sense of inner calm and inner peace? And so when you know which kinds of exercises, whether formal or informal, and I can go more into what that means,
Hmm.
you find which ones like go into each category, then you'll be able to kind of plan and set up a practice, choosing right now I just want to be calm, or right now I'm ready to get challenged, then I'm gonna do the one that I hate, or like I'm just trying to do it every single day, so I'm just going to choose the ones that I enjoy and that I find fun. And if after a month I'm still doing it, then I can maybe start doing the more challenging ones or trying to find the peaceful ones.
Hmm. Excellent. I love that, and I think essentially, right, you're kind of coaching two skill sets in that standpoint, right? It's finding the right moments to begin the practice of mindfulness, but it's also kind of compartmentalizing, right?
Hmm.
It's coaching someone to say, okay, you've got this particular aspect of your life, and we're going to put the things that relate to that aspect in this compartment, and we're going to close it. And when it's time to access it, then we open it. And you do
Hmm.
that several times with all these different pieces of your life where you're kind of compartmentalizing it. And then when you get to the point where you start to practice mindfulness, now it almost becomes easier to become aware of those thoughts. And as opposed to trying to just say, I'm going to ignore it, or I'm going to be aware of it and move it to the left or move it to the right, you can actually say, oh, I'm putting that in that compartment,
Hmm.
closed.
Yeah.
Next, feed my dog. Oh, I'm putting that into that compartment, closed. Next thought, change the car oil. Oh, and you start placing them, as opposed to trying to feel like you're just going to pass them by and not think about them. When
Hmm.
you actively can place them in a compartment, now you're just beginning to create more and more space. And the more and
Yes.
more space you have, then the clearer thinking, the clearer thoughts you have, the desires of your heart begin to come to the forefront of your mind, and you're able to act on those a lot easier and a lot better.
I'm just quiet because I love how you said that. Taking it in, the desires of your heart. Um, and yeah, so again, and like you've said, one of the things that allows you to get to the desires of your heart is the sitting meditation, right? So
Yes.
how do you do that? Like, do you count your breaths? Do you just sit and like observe your thoughts and let them go? Do you say a mantra when you're breathing in and breathing out? Like, what are you, and as I'm mentioning this, again, it's so that people know like there's so many ways you can do this. And so part of the sitting, the formal, basically what we mean by formal is you either sit down for a chosen period of time, and then you do different kinds of focusing, or you choose different things to focus on.
Mhm.
Another kind of formal one is through like mindful walking,
Mhm.
or doing an activity that you do like repeatedly, and so those are kind of the formal ones. So that's some of the ones that you mentioned you do. So how do you do your formal mindfulness practice?
Um, so now I've combined mindfulness and meditation, and I
Okay.
and to me, I've been doing it so long, I can't imagine doing meditation without doing a mindfulness piece first, because my mind is like everyone else's, right? We're just full of thoughts and emotions and feelings, and we need some time to kind
Hmm.
of separate those, place them in the right boxes. So for me, I start with a mindfulness practice first, and it doesn't always have to be long. It might be 5 minutes or so. But then I kind of found a biohack
Hmm.
that I do when it comes to the meditation, because in meditation, yes, it's a lot of it has to do with focusing on your breath. and return. When you find yourself going with your thoughts, you bring it back to focusing on your breath. Um, and the hack that I found, it's a whole lot easier to focus on your breath when you can literally hear your breath. So I
Ooh,
put earplugs in. And when I put earplugs in, now I can really hear myself breathing. And it's a lot easier for me to, when I do get distracted with a thought, because I do, even though I did a mindfulness practice 5 or 10 minutes at a time, I still get inundated with a nonsense thought. And it's a whole lot easier for me to come back to the present moment when I can literally hear myself breathing. And when I can hear myself breathing, the next step is I can hear my pulse.
oh wow.
And then when you can hear your pulse, that transitions into your heartbeat. And when you can hear your heartbeat and your breathing, and you bring those two things into sync, wow, now you're talking about like an amazing meditation session. Um, so that's my little process. That's my hack. I start with mindfulness. I'll put in some earplugs. I'll get distracted. I'll come back to my breath, listening to my breath, and then I start to like really desire to hear my heartbeat, because when I hear that, then I know, okay, I'm in that sweet spot now. This is where the magic happens. I just got to stay right here and then just kind of continue from there.
That's brilliant. And that's a great hack. And I'm probably going to try it. And again, sometimes you're like, well, I can't. People might be like, well, when I'm in life, or players tell me, like, when I'm in the middle of a game, I can't just sit down and like for 5 minutes and listen to my breath. No, you don't. But the more you do it outside, then the easier it is for you to notice the changes in your breath, the changes in your heartbeat. And that leads to like emotional awareness and self-regulation and making better choices, right?
Yes.
And so it builds up, but to be able to do it in the moments that it counts, you need to have all that back practice the way you might have it.
Hmm. Absolutely. And you'll find these moments in your life. I don't care. Like, I'm serious, Tanya. Like, I have had baseball players, football players, soccer players, come to me and say, yeah, I practiced mindfulness today during the game. And I'd say, really? When? As soon as the huddle broke and we were about to line up on the line of scrimmage. I was like, yeah, exactly. Like, that's it. There's a shift in the energy, right?
Right.
Everyone huddles up, quarterback calls the play, break. There's a shift in the energy. In that point 0.2 seconds it takes to break the huddle and get to your spot, people have become skilled enough to say, okay, here's a moment of mindfulness. I don't have to think about the play. I'm going to do it. It's this moment, it's a shift, and I'm going to take advantage of that moment. So it's finding these times throughout the day, all the time.
Yeah.
And I always like to just use that example of first trying to identify where in your life are these shifts in energy that we go through all the time, every day, and we don't pay attention to it and we don't recognize it. Walking from one room to the next and turning off the light, or walking from one room to the next and turning on the light. Um, Turning off the TV after it's been on for 35, 45 minutes and it's just noise in the background. You turn it off, and then there's a shift in the energy in the room because you're no longer hearing the noise or the music or what have you. So there's all of these times that you just have to recognize when they are.
I love that. And I know we have like 1 minute, and that's where you basically introduced like informal practice. And it's, again, just choosing different moments in your day when you are just going to pay full attention to it. Doesn't have to be your full morning coffee, just that first sip,
Yes.
the moment you sit down to have lunch, the first bite. To me, I'm like, what is the smallest action that I can do in different points throughout the day
Hmm.
that just are going to train my mind to be here and now?
Yes.
At the moment you turn on your car and just feel the key, or like you said. And so I think one of the ways you can get better at noticing those shifts in energy is first practicing creating those moments and just being mindful for like 2 seconds at a time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like anything else, you build on it, you build on it, you build on it. It doesn't have to be 10 minutes to start. It could be 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute. So, absolutely. I have thoroughly enjoyed this time with you, Tanya. And unfortunately, the time has run out like it always does so quickly when you're having a great time. And please, Limitless Minds family, tune in tomorrow where we've got Carla and Hubert, and they will be on Transformational Tuesdays. Look forward to a great session with them as well. Tanya, thank you so much. Really enjoyed our time today.
Thank you. Thanks to Lane, Justin, for participating and bringing these amazing examples and ideas. And we just want to invite everyone who's listening now or later to find your mindful moments and enjoy them.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone.